Do you have any regrets about how your professional career unfolded? Hey everyone, my name is Richard Liu and I'm a fourth-year medical student at Harvard and management consultant based out of New York City, moving back to New York City in just a couple months to start my residency training in ENT and head and neck surgery at the combined Columbia Cornell residency program. Today, I'm going to be answering some of your most asked questions about my crazy career path. Thank you everyone who submitted questions on Instagram. They were really fun to read and to think about. So let's jump in. How much research did you do to match into ENT? I'm going to caveat my answer by saying I think I did a lot less research than the typical ENT applicant. When I applied, I had 3 peer-reviewed publications and a number of non-peer-reviewed publications. Now, the important thing about research is that research allows you to demonstrate 2 residency programs. Number 1, your interest in the field, and number 2, your critical thinking ability. And oftentimes on the interview trail, you'll be asked to articulate the role that you had in a research project and the thinking behind how that research project was designed. Now, because of my experience in management consulting, I found that a lot of interviewers were really interested in how that experience shaped the way that I think and the way that I approach the field that I wanted to go into. Next question, do you have any application advice or strategies? Now, all of these applications really center around telling a compelling story or narrative. So when you think about writing your personal statement, think about all the different experiences that you've had and the ways that they have shaped your growth and development. And then try to identify some of the common threads that bring all of these experiences together into a larger, big picture, coherent story. I will call out in a lot of these applications that this is inherently a very performative process where you are curating a story and presenting yourself in a very particular way. As you're weaving this story together, share it with friends, with family, mentors who know you really, really well, and ask them for feedback on how it captures you and really embodies your story. Now, I've applied to many things that I really wanted and did not get in the end, and it comes with a lot of disappointment. And a lot of my journey throughout all of this has been learning that your self-worth and self-love is not determined by these prestigious accolades. And so for me, the most important piece of advice that I can give about going through all of these applications and through these processes is to not let your self-worth be defined by the results of these applications. How do you maximize vacations during medical school? I get a lot of joy from traveling and experiencing new places, making new friends. Now, one principle that I always am asking myself is whether or not I really need to be in a certain place in order to do my job effectively and to fulfill my responsibilities. And if I don't really have to, then I treat it as an opportunity to be elsewhere. Who have been the role models or mentors that you have looked up to the most? Now, I love this question because role models and mentors play such an important role in shaping the person that you become and helping you navigate a journey with a lot of complexity and uncertainty. When I started medical school, I was really inspired by people who had worked in both clinical medicine and in health systems change and health policy, people like Atul Gawande, like Don Berwick. And I tried to take every opportunity that I could to cold email these folks and have conversations with them to really understand how they approached their career and their decision-making as they went through their trajectory. I think after this past year working in management consulting and coming back to clinical medicine, some of the mentors that I've resonated the most with were those who I've observed living an ambitious professional career, but also protecting their well-being and their personal lives outside of their work. One of the most inspiring conversations that I had with a mentor over the last couple of years was with a senior partner at the management consulting firm where I worked, where he described his leadership style and how he instituted team norms in order to protect his time and the time of his team members so that he could spend every weekend and most weeknights with his kids. An important thing to remember about mentors is that your closest mentors are going to be with you for life. Keep them updated on your journey. Your mentors will love to hear about how you're thinking about your journey and the different steps that you take along the way. What tips do you have to be financially stable and independent throughout medical school? So this is a really great question, and I like to think about it in terms of your different sources of income and the way that you spend your money. In terms of income, you can try to find ancillary sources of income through loans, scholarships, and other types of jobs. One of the things that I did when I first started medical school was I tutored for a number of different subjects and standardized exams, and that helped complement some of the scholarships and loans that I'd received in order to give me a little bit more money to spend on the things that I wanted to. On the spending side, one of the things that I would always do is create a budget for myself, where every month I set aside a fixed amount for my savings, my rent, utilities, and groceries, and then I have a certain amount of discretionary spending that I keep track of throughout the month. And one of the things that I like to be on top of is knowing how much that I can spend per day for the rest of my month in order to stay within that budget. How has getting an MBA shaped your outlook on your future career as an ENT surgeon? I think there are a lot of reasons reasons why people get an MBA, and the reason why I wanted to was to be a little bit more conversant in the language of business and the way that it applies to healthcare. The healthcare industry accounts for 1/6 of the GDP in the US, and the operational and strategic sides of running a hospital or a healthcare institution is really integral in shaping the experiences that we have as physicians working within these healthcare systems. As an ENT surgeon, I think that having this familiarity will help me when I want to start my own practice or when I'm operating in the healthcare system that I end up working in. What was your favorite part about studying at Oxford? So my favorite part about studying at Oxford was probably not the studying at all, but living abroad in one of the most diverse communities that I've ever lived in, with easy and cheap access to Europe and the rest of the world on a quick Ryanair or EasyJet flight on the weekends. I was also fortunate to have gone into medical school prior to starting at Oxford, and that really took the stress off and allowed me to really enjoy Oxford for the pubs and Port Meadow and punting and the bops. I cherish a lot of the close lifelong friends that I made at Oxford, and I'm so excited to be seeing a bunch of them in just a few weeks when I head back to London and Italy. What was your Step 2 score, and how important do you think it is now that it is the new standard? So when I applied to residency, I think I was part of one of the last cohorts that had a graded Step 1 exam. And so I released my Step 1 score and not my Step 2 score. Part of the reason I did that was because I took Step 2 after my gap year, and so it was a lot more rusty on my medical knowledge than I was when I took Step 1. That being said, now that Step 1 is pass-fail and Step 2 is the only graded standardized exam that residency programs will have, I think that it is becoming a lot more important, and I know that people are spending a lot more dedicated time studying for Step 2 as opposed to Step 1. Do you have any regrets about how your professional career unfolded? Honestly, none at all. In a lot of previous years, I worried about whether or not me taking all of these different gap years and experiences would set me behind relative to my other classmates. But having gone through this journey now, I am so grateful for all of the life lessons I've learned, and I love being able to take things that I learned in one setting or one industry and taking it and applying it to another. Life really is about the journey, and all of these little detours or even things that you might consider mistakes will become integral moments of growth for you as you continue on this journey on yourself. And so honestly, I would not trade it for anything. What advice do you have for networking? So the first is on communication. Don't be shy on reaching out with a cold email to people that you find interesting. And if you do meet with them, always be sure to send a follow-up note thanking them for their time. Now, number two, when you're in these conversations, I've always found it helpful to ask for advice as opposed to a particular thing. When you ask for advice, if the person that you're talking to has something that they can offer you to help, they will typically offer it at that time. And so I found that framing in this way allows you to open up the space for that conversation without being too pushy. And finally, as the conversation ends, be sure to ask them for other people in their networks that they can connect you with that can help you along your journey as well. How do you optimize productivity, time management in medical school, and things that you found helpful to balance leisure with work? This is a really great question because the way that I organize my life and my work is the thing that enables me to balance all the things that I want to do. I think that there are 4 parts to this that I follow, and something that I really just defined as I was thinking about this question. And these 4 parts are defining, prioritizing, planning, and executing. Now, this first step is defining all the things that you have to do and give an estimate of how much time you think it will take in order to do all of those things. The second step, and I think the most important one for me, is to be really good at prioritizing what can be done now versus later. Once you have all of these things prioritized, you plan them out in your calendar, blocking out chunks of time that I can use to dedicate to do all of these different things. And it's especially useful when you have really hectic days where it feels like your day is filled up from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed. Now, a really important part of planning all of this is building in time that serves as a buffer in case things take longer than you expect, and also building in time to enjoy life and to have dinner with friends or to go on that date night. And finally is executing and going through and doing all of those things. Now, I don't use a lot of fancy technology or tools to organize my life. I really just have my calendar and a notes app on my phone that I use to keep track of a bunch of the to-dos. Now, I portion it out into a couple different time horizons. The first is things that I have to do today and immediately. And the second is things that I just have to keep a watchful eye on. Now, I really like having this system because it allows me to keep track of a lot of different things at once, but not actively mentally think about all of those things all the time. And as a result, it frees up a lot of my mental space so that I just have one less thing to stress about as I'm going throughout my day. How do you manage stress and burnout? This is a really good question and something that I spent a lot of time thinking about because stress, burnout, depression, anxiety, these are all things that are really, really common in medicine, and especially amongst medical students and residents. Now, I have 3 things that I like to do in my life that help shape the way that I approach this problem. First is to really invest in your community and your support system, both your peers and your mentors. Find people who you can openly share your experiences and feelings with without any fear of judgment. I found that it's often really therapeutic to feel seen and understood when you're experiencing these moments and to have all of those feelings acknowledged as well. Number 2 is to really know yourself and find the things that bring you a lot of joy and protect time to do those things. For me, a few of the things that I really enjoy doing are going on long bike rides and listening to playlists that I make that fit a certain mood that I might be in, cooking food and sharing it with my friends, and journaling and writing down all my thoughts. And I found this last one to be really useful because I'll often go back and read the things that I've written in previous times that are really, really stressful. And it'll be a note to myself of how I got through that moment or how I've grown in the time since. And finally, be proactive about sharing the needs that you have with your team. Let them know if you feel like you're just not getting enough sleep or not having time to really take care of yourself. The teams that you work in hopefully will be receptive to making sure that you are able to bring yourself to work in a way every single day that you're able to perform your best and do best for the team as well. All right, that's it everyone. Thank you so much for watching and hopefully you found some of that useful. Please be sure to like and subscribe and feel free to ask any other questions that you might have in the comments, and I will see you next time.